those persons returning or coming in from a Caribbean bubble territory. And the second category involves persons coming in from outside of the Caribbean bubble territory. And I mean persons who would be coming in from the USA, United Kingdom, and further afield. And even persons coming in from Jamaica and Dominican Republic, they all fall into that other category, which carries a significant risk of exposure to the virus. So the question is, if I am a traveler and I'm thinking of coming to St. Kitts and Nevis, what are the pre-arrival requirements? Well, you will be asked to log on to the site, the website, the URL www.knatravelform.kn. There you will see the St. Kitts and Nevis entry form, which Ophelia Blanchard would have just walked you through. And so every traveler coming into the Federation will be required to complete this entry form. So if you're coming in by air or by sea, you would have to complete this form. You would also be required to provide us the result of a PCR test that must be done within 3 days of travel. So if you are coming to St. Kitts this Saturday, you would have had to go to your lab this morning, and to get your sample taken, test processed, to get the result by Thursday, Friday, ahead of boarding the plane on October the 31st. This PCR test must be done at an ISO accredited laboratory in the traveler's host country. And so what I've been telling travelers, just put in your home address and Google for the nearest ISO accredited laboratory in your area where you can access this service. Next. Okay, so if I am coming to St. Kitts and Nevis from a Caribbean territory, what are the requirements? What are the entry requirements? So let's bring it closer home. If I'm coming to St. Kitts from Anguilla, if I'm coming to St. Kitts from Montserrat, what should I do? You have to log on to the site and complete the entry form. You also have to provide us with a negative PCR test done within 3 days of travel. Please note that you should have been residing in that CARICOM bubble territory for at least 21 days in order for you to be considered a part of this Caribbean bubble. So in other words, you cannot come from New York or Miami and go to Anguilla and spend 3 days and come to St. Kitts and expect to be considered as part of the Caribbean bubble. You really should have been residing in Anguilla or Montserrat for at least 21 days. And then when you come to St. Kitts, once you meet the requirements, then you would be free to integrate without any period of quarantine or confinement. So if you come and land at RLB Airport from Anguilla or Montserrat, you would be asked to undergo a focused health screening at the airport. So the Port Health Surveillance Officer will be asking you a series of questions just to make sure that you are not exhibiting any of the COVID-like symptoms. Your temperature will also be taken. And so once you are not exhibiting any symptoms, once your temperature is normal, you would then be free to leave the health counter and move on to immigrations and customs and leave the airport and be allowed to integrate freely into our society. Now, you would be asked to download the St. Kitts and Nevis COVID-19 mobile app on your phone, because we will be monitoring you for the first 14 days of your stay here in the Federation. If you are coming in from, again, Anguilla, Montserrat, you may ask, where can you stay? Once you are allowed free entrance, where can you stay? Well, you can stay at a private residence, your relative, family, friend, or you are free to stay at a COVID-19 certified non-franchise or non-branded hotel, as indicated on the slide. Please note that all arriving passengers from within the Caribbean bubble who have been in transit in a country outside of the bubble will be included in the second category, which I will go on to explain. So, for example, if you are leaving Anguilla and you happen to route yourself through St. Martin en route to St. Kitts, you're going to have a little challenge right there, because if you're in transit in St. Martin, which is a high-risk territory, you will not be considered as part of the Caribbean bubble. Okay, so the next category. If I'm a returning national, what are the entry requirements? So if I'm from St. Kitts and Nevis and I'm coming home from the United Kingdom, from New York, from Miami, from Atlanta, what are the entry requirements? What do I have to do? Again, you would have to log on to the site and complete the entry form. You would have to submit a negative PCR test result done within 3 days of boarding the flight to the Federation. Nationals returning from within the CARICOM bubble. So if you are a national and you are returning from one of the bubble territories, again, Anguilla or Montserrat, and you intend to stay in St. Kitts, you can stay at a private residence or a non-branded hotel, which we've explained before. If you are a national arriving from outside of the bubble territories, if you are coming from United Kingdom, New York, Miami, where can you stay? Upon returning to the Federation, you can stay at Oali Beach Resort Hotel in Nevis, Potworks and Paradise Beach in Nevis. You can also stay at the Ocean Terrace Inn here in St. Kitts, the Royal St. Kitts Hotel in St. Kitts, or you can stay at any of the 4 franchise hotels. So all returning nationals to the Federation, these are your options: Oali Beach, Potworks, Paradise Beach, Ocean Terrace Inn, Royal St. Kitts Hotel, and any of the 4 franchise hotels. So these are the options open to returning nationals to the Federation. But guess what? If you're returning nationals, you still have other options. Next. Returning nationals can also opt for pre-approved quarantine. So if you want to be quarantined in the luxury of your home or private villa, you have that opportunity. So you can log on to the website www.covid19.gov.kn and submit your application. Your home, private villa, will then be visited, evaluated, and once it meets the requirements as outlined, then it can be approved. But you will have to also consent and pay for the security facility. So there's a security fee for which you will be responsible. Please note that at this time, we are not allowing home quarantine without private security. Please note that at this time, we are not allowing home quarantine without private security. Okay, so another very common question we are getting: what are the entry requirements for tourists and international travelers? And so if I'm a tourist coming in from Canada or United Kingdom or in Europe, what are the entry requirements? Again, you're going to have to log on to the website and complete the entry form. You're going to have to submit the negative PCR COVID-19 test done within 3 days of travel. The inbound tourist must also submit confirmation of hotel reservation at either of the following hotels. And so if you're a tourist, an international tourist, these are your accommodation options: the Park Hyatt St. Kitts, Four Seasons, St. Kitts Marriott Resort Hotel, Marriott St. Kitts Vacation Beach Club, Royal St. Kitts Hotel, Koi Resort, and Paradise Beach, Nevis. So these are the accommodation options open to the tourists and international travelers within phase 1 of our opening. The traveler will be required to undergo a focused health screening at the airport. They will be asked to download and install the St. Kitts and Nevis COVID-19 mobile app. And then the tourists, if without symptoms, without exhibiting any COVID-like symptoms, he or she will be allowed to enter the Federation. Such a tourist will be then vacationing in place at the hotel of their choice. Now, at this hotel, they will not be confined to their rooms. They will have access to an approved package of services for the first 14 days or for the duration of their stay, if it's shorter. The tourist will be required to do serial testing, and so he or she will be tested on day 7 and on day 14 if still in the Federation. So if once the tourist who is tested on day 7 receives a negative PCR test, he or she can be allowed only through the hotel's concierge desk and by appointment only access COVID-19 approved tourist attraction sites on the islands of St. Kitts or Nevis. They will access these sites in a secure bubble. So in other words, they would leave the hotel, go to that attraction site, and go back to the hotel in that secure bubble. All inbound travelers or tourists must receive a PCR test on day 14 of stay. Once the result is negative, the traveler or tourist will be allowed to integrate into the society. Another common question, if perchance the tourist or international traveler is exhibiting any COVID-like symptoms at the airport, what happens? So if upon arrival at RLB, the tourist exhibits any COVID-like symptoms and have a fever, that tourist will be channeled to the testing booth. That tourist would have his or her nasopharyngeal swab taken at the airport, because at the airport we now have 3 testing booths. The sample will be sent to the next generation lab where it will be processed. The tourist, after leaving the testing booth, will be taken to the isolation room in the isolation center on the ramp at the airport, where they will be medically evaluated and triaged. And then a decision will be made as to where the tourist will go. They would either go or they will be transported to the COVID-19 ward, or if the tourist is just mildly impacted by this disease process, the tourist may be taken to the accommodation, because each of the accommodation sites would have identified a block of rooms for quarantine and for isolation of their guests. Okay, so this just provides you a quick update as to the status of plans for the reopening of our borders. So the Ministry of Tourism, St. Kitts Tourism Authority, the Nevis Tourism